Hey guys, it's David. Welcome back to the VHS Revolution show and part 3 of my 100 favorite movies of the 21st century. Coming in at 59 is Steven Spielberg's The Adventures of Tintin. Produced by Peter Jackson, it was meant to kick off a series of movies where Spielberg directed one and then Jackson directed the other and then they co-directed the third. The movie wasn't a big enough hit, and like 2011's other supposed franchise starter, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it's a movie that I liked enough when I first saw it, but grew on me the more I watched it. And actually, it's one of my favorite Spielberg movies of the 21st century. A huge, sprawling, fun action adventure with brilliantly choreographed animated set pieces and action sequences that's more reminiscent of Spielberg's Indiana Jones movies than even the 4th and 5th entries in that franchise were. I think it's really underrated and a ton of fun. 58 is David Wayne's summer camp comedy Wet Hot American Summer. It's yet another movie I didn't quite connect with on first viewing, but now I love it. I love it so much. I never get sick of it. It's infinitely quotable. Every line, every scene is hilarious and unique and weird. It's got great early performances from Bradley Cooper, Amy Poehler, Paul Rudd, Michael Showalter, and it's not quite the broad mainstream comedy that a lot of other movies on this list are. It's really unique and has a very specific sensibility. I'm so happy. To the girl who showed me this movie, Carrie Dietrich, if you're out there, thank you for showing me Wet Hot American Summer. It's an absolute gem. 57 is Inglourious Basterds. Quentin Tarantino's World War II movie is both drama, comedy, action, thriller. It's the kind of movie that only Tarantino could make, and for that, I'm really thankful. It features amazing performances, especially Christoph Waltz in one of the most iconic performances of the 21st century, but also from Brad Pitt, Melanie Laurent, Diane Kruger, and Michael Fassbender. And every scene is beautifully written, thrilling, dramatic, and intense. Tarantino has made many good movies in the 21st century. You could pick many of them for this list, including the one on my t-shirt. Death Proof, I think, is actually really underrated. But Inglourious Basterds, for me, is the one that hits the hardest and I think is the best. 56 is yet another Brad Pitt movie. It's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This 2005 action comedy romance stars Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie as a married couple who discover that they are both highly trained assassins and are assigned to kill each other. The movie is notorious for many things that we don't have to get into here, but what it boils down to for me really is that Mr. and Mrs. Smith is peak Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. They have never been funnier, sexier, hotter, more physically capable, more likable, and have better chemistry than in this movie. And then throw in Vince Vaughn, who is also in his prime at this time. And it builds up to this ridiculous action climax where they're just shooting random bad guys in like a Costco or something. But it's just really fun from beginning to end. 55 is Garden State, Zach Braff's 2004 drama about a young man returning home after his mother's death. It's a movie that was beloved when it came out in 2004, but has since received backlash, I guess, for being a little too cutesy, or Natalie Portman plays this manic pixie dream girl. Either way, I connected with this movie in 2004, and I still do. Yes, some of Zach Braff's directorial flourishes are a bit much, but I love the soundtrack. I love the performances from Braff and Natalie Portman and Peter Sarsgaard and all these other really great little supporting actors that are on the periphery of the movie. And it takes me back to 2004, a summer when movies like Collateral, Spider-Man 2, Garden State, and Fahrenheit 9/11 could all coexist in movie theaters and be big hits. The movie feels real, but also kind of whimsical, and I find myself getting really caught up in the relationships, and the ending really always gets me. 54 is Magic Mike, director Steven Soderbergh's drama about male strippers in Florida, starring Channing Tatum, Cody Horn, Matthew McConaughey, and Alex Pettyfer. It's not exactly the kind of movie you'd expect from director Steven Soderbergh, especially back in 2012, but watching it then and watching it now, it's still a hugely satisfying movie. A sequel, Magic Mike XXL, was made a few years later, which is also fun, but Soderbergh returned to direct a third movie, Magic Mike's Last Dance, which is pretty awful in just about every way. I have a personal connection to this movie because I worked a bit on the trailer, and I remember just how surprised everyone was when the movie was such a huge hit. But it's deserving. It's a great movie. 53 is Richard Linklater's School of Rock, which is easily Linklater's best big studio movie, and I think Jack Black's best performance. It's very funny and full of great music, but the heart of the movie is Black's relationships with all of those students. All those kids are so great and so funny. My favorite scene in the movie is this one-take shot where Black is building the band kid by kid and instrument by instrument until they're all rocking out. It's just a beautifully choreographed sequence, but also feels very real. It's not rushed, and I think a lot of that has to do with Linklater's direction and his commitment to authenticity, even within the confines of a big studio comedy. 52 is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. When the movie came out in 2015, the level of genuine excitement for the first Star Wars movie in 10 years was real. And for me, it's still better and more thrilling than anything that's come out in the franchise since then. I loved being introduced to these new characters, Rey, Finn, Poe, and Kylo Ren, as well as the way that the movie integrated older characters like Leia and Han Solo and Chewie. The Force Awakens is the only movie in the franchise that really gives me that feeling I had as a kid watching Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back. It's a lot of fun in just about every way. 51 is Spike Lee's 25th Hour, which is, I think, Spike's best movie of the 21st century, shot and set in the aftermath of 9/11, about Monty Brogan, a drug dealer played by Edward Norton, and his last night of freedom before going to prison. The great cast includes Rosario Dawson as his girlfriend, Barry Pepper and Philip Seymour Hoffman as his two best friends, and Brian Cox as his dad. There's an incredible sequence midway through the film known as the Fuck You sequence, where Monty looks at himself in the mirror and thinks about all the different people he's surrounded by in New York City. It's very Spike Lee, reminiscent of a similar sequence in Do the Right Thing, but very emotional. And the movie is very emotional. The movie's not about 9/11 in any way, but the events of 9/11 still hang over the movie, and there's a sadness in almost every scene. Not surprisingly, given it's a Spike Lee movie, the Academy completely ignored the film, completely ignored Edward Norton's great performance. And I think also because it came out at the very end of 2002, it kind of got lost in the shuffle with Gangs of New York and Chicago and The Hours and Lord of the Rings and other movies that were playing at that time. But it was great back then, and it's still great now. Coming in at 50 is John Hamburg's bromantic comedy, I Love You Man. I Love You Man is what I call an Apatow-adjacent movie. It features some of the actors from his movies, in this case Jason Segel and Paul Rudd, and has all the hallmarks of an Apatow comedy. But he wasn't involved at all. The performances from Paul Rudd and Jason Segel are maybe their best comedic performances, and an amazing supporting cast including J.K. Simmons, Andy Samberg, Jon Favreau, Jamie Presley, Rashida Jones, and of course, the great Lou Ferrigno. I love I Love You Man. It is one of my favorite movies about friendship, and it's really, really, really funny. And in the end, it's genuinely heartwarming. I Love You Man is a great comedy. 49 is Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise's long-awaited follow-up to Tony Scott's iconic 1986 original. And it's a movie that pretty much everybody who's seen it feels the same way about. And that's really rare, especially in the 21st century as we get further and further away from the kinds of blockbusters that Hollywood used to pump out more regularly. To have a movie that so many people genuinely love is so great. And the fact that it's this movie makes it even better. Cruise is in top form here and is assisted by a great supporting cast that includes Jennifer Connelly, Jon Hamm, and Miles Teller, as well as a bunch of actors who were kind of unknown at the time but have gone on to have much bigger careers. And even though the first 40 minutes are essentially a scene-for-scene remake of the first movie, I think what director Joseph Kosinski pulls off is actually quite miraculous, because for me, the third act is actually kind of corny and full of CGI, but it works because the movie does the work to get you invested in the characters and the storylines. It's not just a movie about brilliant flight sequences, and the flight sequences are amazing and brilliant. But in the end, what we really care about is Cruise and Miles Teller and Jennifer Connelly and all the characters and their relationships. And that's really what makes the movie so, so great and so rewatchable. 48 is the James Bond movie Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes. It was a tough call between this and Casino Royale, and despite some of the amazing action sequences in Casino Royale, I decided to go with Skyfall. I love Skyfall. I think it takes the Bond movies in a kind of different, more somber direction. It's kind of like the Dark Knight of the Bond franchise. Daniel Craig is in top form, as well as Javier Bardem as a great villain. And the movie is just really classy from beginning to end. Roger Deakins' cinematography is beautiful, and Sam Mendes turns out to be the perfect director for this story. His follow-up movie, Spectre, is not as good. Skyfall is great. Coming in at 47 is Steven Soderbergh's Solaris. When I first moved to Los Angeles in the fall of 2002, I saw posters and billboards for two movies all over the city. One was Half Past Dead, the Steven Seagal Ja Rule action movie, and the other one was Solaris, which, despite the pedigree of Soderbergh coming off a string of huge hits as well as an Oscar win, producer James Cameron, and star George Clooney, the movie was a huge bomb. And that's unfortunate, because I think it's one of Soderbergh's best movies. It's a very still, thoughtful, vibey movie with great performances from Clooney, Natasha McElhone, Jeremy Davies, and Viola Davis. And one of my all-time favorite scores from Cliff Martinez. 46 is Zoolander. Ben Stiller's always funny, always quotable, hilarious comedy about the world of male models from 2001. The performances by Stiller, Owen Wilson, and Will Ferrell, who were everywhere in the early 2000s, as well as Christine Taylor, are on point. The movie just hits right. It's so weird and so off the wall, but so funny. It's really hard to believe that the movie came out almost 2 weeks after the events of 9/11 and yet still managed to cut through, and 25 years later, I still can't hear Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go by Wham without thinking of Zoolander. 45 is Crazy Stupid Love, directed by Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, and starring Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, Marissa Tomei, Julianne Moore, and Kevin Bacon. And it's a great comedy about divorce and romance. It's the first teaming of Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. They would do 3 movies together, and their chemistry is off the charts. And I think it's Steve Carell's best romantic comedy performance. The movie is famous for building to this hilarious reveal where we find out all the characters and their relationships to each other, but you didn't know before, and then it all comes to a head, and it's so funny. I'll never forget seeing the movie in theaters and the wave of laughter that came over the theater as more and more people realized who was who and what was what. I don't even want to say any more about it, because if you haven't seen it, I know it's 2011, it's 15 years later almost, but it's still worth seeing, especially if you don't know anything about it. It's peak Gosling. I think it's actually one of his best performances. I wish the Academy had recognized him with a Best Supporting Actor nomination. He's just fabulous in the movie, and Steve Carell is perfect. It's a great movie. 44 is Erin Brockovich, yet another Steven Soderbergh movie. That's 3 on this list today. The guy makes good movies, what can I say? This legal drama came out in the spring of 2000, was a huge hit. Star Julia Roberts won the Oscar for Best Actress, and it also has a great supporting cast of Albert Finney, Aaron Eckhart, and Marg Helgenberger, among many others. And it's one of those movies that on the surface seems kind of like solid and competently made, but, nothing special. But I think it actually is really special. And there are so many ways the movie could have gone wrong and ended up being kind of a corny movie of the week, do-gooder legal drama. But it's a lot more than that. It's always satisfying to watch this movie. I never get sick of it. I love it. 43 is Ridley Scott's The Martian, about as big and satisfying as movies get. I've always been kind of hit and miss with director Ridley Scott, but this 2015 sci-fi blockbuster starring Matt Damon is an undeniable absolute hit. Damon stars as Mark Watney, an astronaut stuck on Mars after his crew is forced to evacuate. That crew is played by Jessica Chastain, Michael Pena, Sebastian Stan, and Kate Mara. While on the ground at NASA, Jeff Daniels, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Kristen Wiig, Sean Bean, Benedict Wong, and a really funny Donald Glover try to figure out how to get him home. It's just one of those movies that makes you feel good every time you watch it, and I love it. At 42 is Richard Linklater's Boyhood. It was shot over 12 years and follows the same characters. A boy, Mason, played by Eller Coltrane, his sister, played by Lorelai Linklater, Richard's daughter, and their divorced parents, played by Patricia Arquette, who won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her performance, and Ethan Hawke. And the film is just amazing. It's epic in length, but intimate and small in scope and story, and doesn't follow the conventional structures for what we think of as a coming-of-age story. It's about the people that come in and out of our lives and those that are there in the end. And by shooting with the same actors over 12 years, They're not doing what other movies do, which is use old age makeup or wigs to make them look older or younger. We are really following these characters as they are literally growing over time. And there's something so magical and amazing about it. And what's funny is by the end, I actually didn't want it to end. I was so engrossed and connected with these characters. I wanted to see more of their lives and see how things played out. And I want to see more. I want to see where Mason's at now and where his family is at now. I would love to see a sequel, but we'll probably never get one. That's okay. Boyhood is still a great movie. At 41 is Steven Spielberg's dark and intense political thriller Munich, starring Eric Bana as the head of a group of assassins hired to enact vengeance against those responsible for the terrorist takeover of the 1972 Munich Olympics. Written by Tony Kushner and Eric Roth, it's both an engrossing drama with pre-James Bond actors Daniel Craig and Matthew Almaric, and a truly edge-of-your-seat thriller, with beautifully directed sequences by Spielberg and brilliant cinematography by Janusz Kaminski. There's one slight false note towards the end, but it's really not enough to ruin this otherwise spectacular movie. Okay, that's it for part 3 of my 100 favorite movies of the 21st century countdown. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of my list or what some of your favorite movies of the 21st century are. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe. If you want to see part 2, you can watch it here. And I'll see you next time for part 4.